me about it. Come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dream. Right now. Inspirational perspective.
This is part 2 of what we talked about last week in terms of vision and mostly mindset. I'll be diving a bit more into vision after we clarify this notion of mindset. But the thing that, was really, really clear for me is that you can't maintain a vision unless you know how to maintain your mindset. So what use is it talking about how to create a vision when, unfortunately, most people can't even maintain the focus on a vision because of their mindset? And I'm going to talk about why that is today. Why is it so difficult for us to maintain what I'm calling the warrior's mindset? The warrior's mindset. Let's start here. When you think about a warrior, and it's something about, for me at least, the 17th century, 16th, anything before the 16th, 15th century where guns became a big thing, is something about that type of warrior. There's something to be said about someone, an individual that could look another, when I think about a warrior, right, look another man in the eye, stand his ground, face to face. I ain't talking about knives to the back, but face to face, and say, I'm willing to put my life on the line for this ideal, this idea, this commitment that I have, whatever it might be. I'm willing to put my life on the line to defend this particular idea. It takes a particular mindset. One, to be someone who's even willing to stand square against someone else. Because even when you think about that period of time where those type of warriors existed, there were others who would run away. I mean, it's not for me. So what went into the mindset of the individual who was willing to take a stand? Whether they won or lost, I'm not so much interested in the outcome. I'm interested in what they stood for. And whenever you're willing to take a stand, there's something about that I think very few people regret. Like you knew you stood on something you firmly believed in, whether you win or lose. But it takes a particular mindset to be that way. And when I think about the environment that we live in today, we are on a battlefield unlike any other battlefield that humans have ever encountered. And it requires a warrior's mindset just to simply remain focused on what you want to do. Like, you have to maintain a warrior's mindset just to carry a singular thought and commitment for 24 hours. Because in today's environment, in today's world, what has become clear is that your mind, or the attention of your mind, is being drawn, I'm trying to think of another word, influenced, persuaded to go in so many other places. So, how do we maintain clarity and focus on the things that are most important to us? the things that you believe you should be focused on. Because even if you believe it deeply, we live in a world today where you'll wake up and say, this matters to me, but for some reason, I'm having a really difficult time maintaining my focus on it. Mindset and vision, like how you get to this point mentally, because this is a mental state, is you have to know how to express your gratitude. So you have to be in a mind state of gratitude. And the reason for that is blessings create the foundation of our mindset. Blessings create the foundation of every vision. Gratitude, therefore, is the foundation of every vision. And by expressing gratitude, this helps us see very clearly where we've been blessed in life, where the Creator has acted for us in life. And so this gives us a framework by which we create what's next, our life's vision. And this also creates, what's the best way to say it? Creates the confidence with which we can leap into action around our vision. Because often when we have a vision, we don't know every step, which means we're taking the first step without understanding what the second, third, fourth, and fifth steps are. And so that requires an act of faith when we leap. Gratitude is the foundation for how we know to take the leap and the act of faith in alignment with our vision. And vision also allows us to stand in faith once we are clear on what it is that we're supposed to do. So much uncertainty. The uncertainty, it just seems like week over week it continues to escalate. And the reason vision is important is because we have already distinguished that vision is a necessary tool to lead oneself and others in today's uncertain environment. So when I'm clear on my vision, it allows me to act regardless of what the economists say, regardless of what the media says. It gives me the faith and courage to act. Now, whenever you have these type of economic downturns, this type of geopolitical uncertainty, you ever notice how those who are in action, despite what's going on around them, are typically, when we come into what we feel is certainty, because, every day is uncertain, but we have this illusion. I think let me say this. I believe one of the reasons many people struggle with conflict that we're experiencing right now is because they bathe themselves in the belief that things are certain when there's no negative news. They're like, everything's good. The economy is growing. Interest rates are low. I'm good. So we pretend, or we fool ourselves into thinking that we have some level of control because things aren't as volatile. So I know how to navigate this because things aren't volatile. Without understanding that every moment brings with it the possibility of volatility. And when you understand that, when you live that way, then when you actually experience volatility, I just firmly believe that you have already practiced putting your life in the Creator's hands. And so now it's not a difficult situation. You don't find yourself stressed out and worried. Once you know the vision, your mind must be set on the vision. But how do you set your mind? How does one set their mind? And how can you be successful if you don't even know what success means to you? And I think this is why mindset is so important. Like, what is your mind on? I'm going to ask a very simple question just to kick things off. want to ask a very simple question. This morning, what level of clarity do you have on what it is that you desire for your life? If you were to rank it on a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to 10, what level of clarity do you believe that you have when it comes to what it is that you desire for your life? 1 being you're not clear at all, you're feeling your way. 10 being you are so clear that it is mentally and emotionally compelling. For those of you on Facebook, if you don't mind just putting your number, putting your number in the comment stream. And then for those of you in Radio Land listening, just put the number in your mind. Where are you? Like in terms of clarity around what it is that you desire, just simply desire. How clear are you? And here's the reason I'm starting. The reason I'm starting here. If you're not clear on what it is that you desire, how can you even remotely believe that you will get there? Like, if you're not clear, and it might sound like a ridiculous question, but as someone who works with human beings on a regular basis, like day in, day out, throughout the weeks, one of the things I realize is most of us are not really clear on what it is that we would like to create in our lives. Like there's just a simple lack of clarity. So then we wonder, like, why am I spinning my wheels? Why am I not? But it's like, what do you even desire? Like really, truly desire. Like truly desire in a way that you have a yearning for it. And I like the word yearning because it's one thing to want something, right? Like, I want a new car. But you take that same car and you place a yearning for it, like a yearning. What does yearning mean? Yearning means a feeling of intense longing and desire, like intense. So then when you bring the word intense in, that means that there's likely some level of emotion vibrating around that particular desire. And I bring that up because I do believe that we're living in an era where most of us don't have a yearning for much of anything. And the reason we don't have a yearning for much of anything is because most of our concerns are handled. Like our hardcore concerns, like if you're laying in bed right now, I think it's safe to say that you own a mattress. So you're, somewhat comfortable. You own a comforter for you're in Chicago, and so you're warm. Maybe you're listening and you have it wrapped around your body. You're warm. If you're driving, you're likely not driving in the cold. You got heat in the car. It might not be the vehicle that you really want, but at the same time, like, you got windows around you, heat blowing. You're comfortable. And so in that comfort, there's a lack of yearning. That's one reason we don't yearn, because we're too comfortable. Here's the second reason we don't yearn. Many of us don't yearn for anything because we hate the feeling of disappointment. We hate the feeling of not getting what we want. So then we don't allow ourselves to deeply want anything. Well, I think one of the best examples of this are people who say they want to be in a relationship, but there's no real deep yearning for a relationship because there's a fear of potentially falling in love and then being hurt. And so it's like, well, I want it, but I'm all right where I am because I don't want to put any real skin in the game. I don't want to, check this out. This is the translation of it. I don't want to live all out fully, no matter what happens. I'd rather live just a bit and remain in my emotional shell. That's how I interpret that. And I know you're like, that's not what I want to do, but that's ultimately what you're doing. So deep yearning. What is it that you truly desire? And what is it that you yearn for? And as we go into what the topic today, I want you to keep that top of mind. And if you don't have something you yearn for, it's even more important that you listen. Because imagine going through life with no real compass, with no real direction. And one thing that yearning provides is direction. So what is it that you yearn for? Now, for those of you who know, but there's a feeling of guilt that's associated with it. Because this is what happens too. Like somebody might have said, well, I yearn for financial security and financial freedom, but I feel guilty going for that. Well, we're going to talk about that too, because where did your programming get hacked? Where now you can't desire and want the best. Like, where did your programming get hacked? Where you can't want and desire the best for your life, the best for those that you love, and ultimately the best for you. So again, when we talk about mindset, we talk about the mind, like many of us we're up against a lot. We're up against a lot. And this is why I wanted to take my time and make sure that we cover this in an appropriate way. Okay. Most of us live in the right now, this moment. Like, this is where most of us are living. Let me break down how I know this is so true these days. So when I talk to my marketing team, like, we talk when we put out these, these reels and things like that. And, it's always like, how do we, Ade, you and I have these conversations. How do we relay the message in 60 to 90 seconds? Because why? People's attention spans are short. Why are people's attention spans short? Well, one is this is part of the programming. Like this is part of the programming that's taking place. Like, it's on purpose. Because if you can think on a singular thought for quite some time, then that in itself will break you out of the norm of how the world is currently operating. So that's one. So, like, I think our children, even with these devices, they're taught to boom, move, move, move. One of the things my son used to do, he doesn't do it anymore because I really stayed on top of him about it. But he would maybe be watching YouTube on, one of the phones. And while whatever it is he's watching is going, he's scrolling, looking for the next thing. Like, looking for the next. I'm like, hey, what's that about, man? Like, hey, focus. Like, if you want to watch that, watch that. Like, just watch it. And I'm like, turn the screen and watch it. Like, and for me, it was just a simple lesson on staying present. Staying present for what it is that you were looking to create or looking to get. But most of us, we live in the right now, and it's the right now, that living in the right now, that has us committed to instant gratification. So even you take a show like this and me teaching a lesson that requires a certain level of attention over time, over the next 90 minutes, and most folks can't do it because they're not living for what it is they're going after in the future. They're living in the right now. And what is it that I could be doing right now? Not focusing on what is it that I can be doing later. So very few people have this discipline. This week, I was at a conference that was focused on where I would want to take my business. And it required my attention for really, I would say almost 12 hours a day. So the ability to sit down and think about my business, focus on my business, allow everything else to be closed out for 12 hours for not just one day. And then one day, we went more than 12. We started like 7 and went all the way to almost 10 p.m. 10 p.m. Focused on development of self and development of where we want to go next. And this is always a small group of people because most folks are just like that level of focus, but it requires a particular type of mindset based on a vision. And that's all I'm getting to. So even now, are you like, okay, where is this going to take me? A warrior's mindset. How do I focus in right now so I can maintain or understand a warrior's mindset for my future? In order to do that, you can't just live in right now. And then most of us make decisions from right now. And as a result, we create our lives from right now. And this is why so many people have, one, regret, but two, they lack the ability to powerfully create their futures. Why do most of us live in right now? 1 in 3 of us have trauma. I talked about that already. And our subconscious mind is programmed to follow orders. So the Vision Manifesto states, quote, many people today live their entire lives on the basis of seeing is believing. I have to see it to believe it. That is to say, the only images they get emotionally involved with are the ones that they can discern with their physical senses. The only time I get emotional is when I can see things in the real world. Remembering that the etymology of the word emotion is energy and motion. So whenever my energy is in motion, I have to be interacting with the physical world. But the individuals of real vision down through the ages have always known the overriding principle is what you see in your mind, what you see in your vision is what you get. Expressed somewhat differently, what this means is that the images in people's minds actually precede the concrete images which pervade our material and physical world. Now, let me pause here. I'm not done with the manifesto, but let me pause here. So, if we go back to the first paragraph and we reread this, many people today live their entire lives on the basis of seeing is believing. So, only thing I believe in is what I can see right now. If we go back to that, then what this is basically saying that individuals that are only caught up in seeing what is in the physical world and believing what they can hold on to, that in essence, there are a group of individuals who are creating what you believe in. Like there's someone else, because they can see things in their mind, they are creating what it is that you have chosen to believe in. Because even right now, for those of you watching Facebook, you can see this mic. You can see the mic, and this mic is physical. So Linnell is speaking into the mic. Your eye sees that. You believe it. You can hear it. And so I can work with that. But what that really says is if you can't see something for yourself that emotionally moves you, then you are stuck in what is really that first category. That first category, which means that for anyone of vision, they have some level of control over you. Like if I have vision and I can create things, that means I can control you. Here's what I mean when I say that. Seeing is believing. Most of us watch commercials. And then you believe the commercial. Oh my, that sandwich looks good on the television. I see it, and then they bit into it, and they smiled. I believe it. I see it. I believe it. That is providing me an emotional sensation based on what I saw. And so then I am going to do what they told me to do and go buy a sandwich and eat it. And so I am bound by the creations of other people. I am bound by the vision. I really want you all to see this. Like, I am bound by the visions of other people. That's why a warrior's mindset is so important. Because a warrior is willing to swim upstream, to go against the grain, to fight for what they believe in, fight for what they see. But then it goes on to say, but the individuals of real vision, because that what you saw wasn't real vision, that was television. That wasn't real vision. So real vision, down through the ages, they've always known that the overriding principle is what you see is what you get. Expressed somewhat differently, what this means is that the images in people's minds actually precede the concrete images which pervade our material world. So what matters to me most is what I see in my mind, not what I see in the world. This right here can begin to express why leaders who have vision can operate in uncertainty. Because what matters is what I have in my mind and not what's happening around me. I'm going to continue reading. Therefore, you should be aware of the fact that the fascinating physical world we see before us, with all of its conveniences for making our lives more comfortable, has been built largely by image makers, men and women of vision, who knew what they could do. Who knew? So let's sit with that. I started the show by saying that gratitude is the foundation of every vision. So what the Creator has done for me already gives me an assurance that I know I can fulfill on my future vision. And so I know what I can do, and I expect, this is what the manifesto says, and expected everything to fall into place, regardless of what their critics might say to the contrary. So regardless of what my cousin said, regardless of what my mother said, regardless of what my spouse said, I believed that I could go create it. That takes a particular type of mindset. Then it goes on to say, remember, you will only receive what you truly expect, not what you wish for. So this also comes down to this whole notion of trauma. Because if I've experienced trauma, I was having this conversation in the barbershop last night. A pastor, and shout out to him, he's celebrating 18 years of pastoral leadership. But he came in behind me. We were all in the barbershop. We were talking. And one of the things that came up is like this notion of black men and trauma. We were, brothers in the barbershop. We were talking about ourselves and our struggles. And I was just talking about how therapy transformed my perspective of the world. But more importantly, my perspective of myself. And once you are whole and complete, and you realize that you have a piece of the Creator, I have a piece of the Creator in me, which makes me a creator too. God, Yah being the macro creator, Yahweh, Allah, whomever he is to you, being the macro creator, and his spirit being inside of me as the micro creator gives me the ability to create in the earth realm. And when I truly believe that, then my vision is not just a dream. My vision becomes an expectation. And this is really important. This is really important because it's one thing to have a dream. It's another thing to have an expectation. Because when I expect it to happen, I'm willing to get prepared for it. I'm willing to prepare myself for it. So the Vision Manifesto goes on to say, remember, you will only receive what you truly expect. Many of you, like, I want to be clear about this because some people are like, oh, this stuff doesn't work. I've been listening to Linnell for years and nothing has happened. And it's because you didn't expect it. I hope you really get this. I hope you can wrap your mind around it. It's because you just didn't expect it. You're like, well, I can see why it happens for him. I can see how, just listening, like, oh my goodness, he really believes. So I can see why it happens for him, but that would never happen for me. And then guess what? It will never happen for you. It will never happen for you. You have to expect it. But see, here's the thing. Expectation of vision requires a particular type of mindset. What warrior do you know stands toe to toe with another warrior expecting to lose? Like, because the one that expected to lose ran. The one who expected to lose, they're like, I'm not fighting this dude. Like, I'm going to lose. I'm going to die. And so they're trying to figure out how to get away. But a warrior's mindset is, if you intend to come into my home and hurt my family, I'm going to stand in the door. And the expectation that I have is that I will defeat you. I will defeat you. I expect to win. I don't know how. You're a lot bigger than me, but you're going to drop your guard somewhere. I expect to win. And then you can say this to any fighter, anybody out there who's trained in fighting. As you know, most of us, we don't want to fight someone who's willing to, like, you don't just bully somebody who's willing to stand square against you, no matter what size they are. You're like, be talking and like, yeah, oh, okay. Whatever, dude. That's when they walk away. A lot of woofing, and then you like, okay, I'm standing here. What we gonna do? Whatever, man. Whatever. Why? Because for you to stand, warrior's mindset, for you to stand means you have an expectation to win. And nobody wants to fight somebody who has an expectation that they will win. That's not attractive for a bully. Not attractive. So do you expect to create what it is that you desire? The manifesto then goes on to say, this requires that many of us take on a shift in mindset. Not just today, but from today on. A shift in mindset. A shift in mindset. Now, let me tell you something. If right now that hits you and you're like, you know what? I'm committed. Then how committed are you? I always say, like, how committed are you? There are 5 hindrances to having a clear mindset. 5 hindrances to having a clear mindset and staying in alignment with your vision. I want to cover these 5 hindrances before we go to break. We'll dive into them, and then I'm going to share the framework on how to shift your mindset at the top of the hour once we come back from break. 5 hindrances. The first hindrance to mindset is sensual. Sensual. Now, right away, somebody's saying, oh, yeah, okay, sex. No, I'm not just talking about sex. I'm talking about anything that arouses the senses. Anything that arouses the senses. So this is bigger than sex. This is your appetite. It can be what you eat. Because some of us have a sensual experience when we put something in our mouth. And it's like, you had a mindset around health and well-being before it hit your nose, right? One of the biggest hindrances to mindset is sensual. It was like, I was all good until I smelled it. I was all good until I felt it. This is one of the reasons why, music is sensual. If you're a young lady and you walk into a man's home, and he's got a certain mood set. Moods are sensual. You get certain music playing, your radar goes up. What you trying to do? What you going? Because you're trying to invade my senses. And if you're not smart enough to actually be aware of that, well, you fried chicken. Because the number one hindrance to mindset, you can go in saying, I'm not doing anything with this man. Right? That's the mindset. The number one hindrance to mindset is sensual. He don't even got to touch you, but if the music touches you, all of a sudden you walk away thinking, what happened last night? Because the number one mindset, and look, this is real. This is real. We're human beings. You have to understand how you operate. The second is ill will, negativity. Negativity. Let me tell you something right now. If you want to master your mindset, you have got to get to a point where you can block out negativity no matter who it comes from. I don't care who it is. You can block it. They want to come with negativity, and I'm good on that. I'm giving it the Heisman. Like, no, out of here. It could be a spouse. It could be somebody you work with, whomever, man. It's blocking, especially if that negativity is coming against my vision. That's number 2, ill will and negativity. Number 3, being in an energetic prison. What is an energetic prison? Many of us, we just don't have the energy to execute or take the action that is in alignment with what it is that we want or what it is that we expect. I can't even say, if you don't have the energy to take the action, you don't expect it. So, like, it's one and the same. But unfortunately, many of us are in an energetic prison. So we have mental desires that we cannot act on physically because we just don't have the energy. Number 4 is an unsettled mind. Again, this is why I can teach you how to write a vision, but we got to work on the mind first. Because if you can't simply focus, then how can you maintain a mindset? How can you maintain a mindset? Now, the good news is all these things can be addressed. All these things can be handled, but you have to know how. Unsettled mind, the inability to focus. And then number 5, which is the killer of most dreams, is skeptical doubt. So as soon as you have the vision, doubt hits you. And typically this comes from the cognitive distortion, enough, not enough. Many of us, we have been programmed in the American operating system that because of my skin color, I can't. And so that programming puts skeptical doubt in everything that we believe. Everything that we believe about ourselves, about what we can achieve, and about where we want to go. And so every time you're inspired to go to the next level, then as you sit with it, you begin to take action. What comes into the picture is skeptical doubt. Skeptical doubt. And what happens is you actually back off what it is that you believed you could do, simply because of that doubt, skeptical doubt. Those are the 5 hindrances of mindset. Your senses, sensuality, negativity, energy, lack of focus, and skeptical doubt. We create what we think about. We create what we think about. So then, why do we think the thoughts that we think? Why do we think the thoughts that we think? Almost every thought that we think has been provided to us in some fashion, subliminal fashion, subconscious fashion. It has been given to us in some fashion. So the first step to developing or shifting your mindset is the ability to become incredibly thoughtful and intentional about your mental inputs. Throw the framework up for me, Ade, so those on Facebook can see it. The first step to gaining full control of your mindset is by controlling your thoughts. And, you know, the funny thing is people are like, well, I can't control how I think and what comes to my mind. Maybe not completely, but you can play a very, very pivotal role in what comes to your mind by being very, very, very deliberate about your mental inputs. It does not surprise me when I have clients who they say, oh, I'm struggling with something. One of the first questions I ask is, well, where are you feeding yourself that? So I've had, male clients who are like, man, I'm really struggling with being faithful to my wife. I've actually had men hire me because they want to establish some level of fidelity in their relationship. And I'll say, okay, what is the source of infidelity? Oh, it's just, well, I'm a man. Well, no, that's not it, because I'm a man too. And I don't walk around thinking about how I can cheat on my wife. Okay? So then what is it that is sourcing your thoughts? And when we start to get down to it, there's pornography, that's a mental input. Relationships with other men and how they talk, that's a mental input. And they have these mental inputs that are actually causing the thoughts that they have to fight. So then if we go after the inputs themselves, then it begins to cut down on the thought. We create what we think about. So remember, what makes us significant is our ability to think and utilize the mind. Last week, I talked about how human beings are puny in the face of almost everything else on the earth. Outside of insects and fish, everything else on the earth, if you put us up against them based on our human strength and capacity, we will lose. More than likely, we will lose. The eagle can see miles away. The gorilla has a different level of strength, the lion. Like, we look at these different, dogs have an incredible sense of hearing and smelling. Jaguars can see through the dark at night. Bats have sonar radar, and then here we are as humans, and many of us can barely walk around the room in the morning without stubbing our toes. And if we do stub our toe, that's game over, right? Game over for the next few minutes. So how can you in any way win at this game, or win on earth at a minimum, if we didn't have the level of thought? Like, what allows us to dominate the planet is our ability to think. So then what allows you to dominate your life is your ability to think. What influences your thoughts? Your mental inputs. So then if I'm incredibly thoughtful, incredibly, what's another good word? Like, deliberate about what I allow into my mind via the gates of my eyes, via the gates of my ears, via the receptor of my mouth. Because let's be clear, the food that you eat impacts your thinking. You ever ate something and had wild dreams? Ever happened to you? Right? You just had some wild, like you ate something, you're like, whatever I ate gave me some wild, like I was dreaming crazy. Like, you have to be deliberate about what you allow every receptor on the human body to take in, including your skin. My wife and I, we have a special subscription to a company for the lotion that we put on our skin, because the skin is a way that things enter the body. It's inputs. Inputs can happen, right? So we want to make sure that there are no hidden chemicals, poisons that can enter the largest organ on the body, the skin. And so what are your inputs? So if we create what we think about, how do we make room for new ways of thinking? And the first step to that is mindset. Mindset is a combo of what I currently have, what I do with it, and how I get more of that. Let me say this again. Make sure you really get this. Mindset is a combo of what I currently have. So here's the thing. Like if you've been willy-nilly with your mental inputs, you got to deal with that. So it's a combo of what you currently have, what I do with that. You can say, okay, I have some things I've been allowing to enter my mind that I want to expel. So what I'm going to do with that? I'm going to intentionally begin to starve those components of my thinking. It means I can't give it any more food. How do I not give it any more food? I cut the inputs. Now, are you going to have withdrawals? Absolutely. This is where vision comes in. Vision begets discipline. We're going to be talking about that in a couple of weeks. Just follow. But this is where vision comes in. But for now, I want you to understand the impact that mindset has on vision. So what I do with it and where I get more. So then it's like, okay, I know I need to change my inputs. So then what do I need more of? Because I got to fill it with something. I got to fill it with something. When I was in, well, it's not even, I can't even say in my 20s because I still do it to this day. One of the ways I feed my mind, and this comes for anyone who listens on a regular basis, this comes as no surprise, but I listen to the old school personal development gurus. I'll just be riding. Before I take off, put on YouTube and be like, let's listen to Earl Nightingale. Let's check out Bob Proctor. What is, I'm trying to think of Jim Rohn talking about today. Is there a Jim Rohn video I haven't seen? So these are my mental inputs. So then when I have to do battle, you all follow? When I have to do battle, I have all the weapons that I need. When we think about mental inputs, that takes us to mental acuity. If you can throw that framework back up. It takes us to our mental acuity. What is acuity? Acuity is mental sharpness, like the keenness of thought, like your ability to actually focus in on something. So I want to control my inputs, but then I want to develop my mental acuity. How does one develop their mental acuity? Well, if we're saying mental sharpness, how does one sharpen a knife? Friction. I know somebody just took a deep breath. Oh, this is going to be difficult. Friction. It requires friction. Mental acuity. In order for you to develop mental acuity, you have to be willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations where it creates the friction that sharpens your mind. Mental acuity. And the combination of the proper mental inputs and mental acuity, right? Mental discomfort creates a new level of awareness. You begin to learn more about yourself. You're like, oh, well, the reason that didn't go well is because I was thinking about it this way. Oh, in the future I should. You get better. And that mental acuity actually provides you the leverage, that mental sharpness provides you the leverage you need for the mental battlefield. The reason many of us are losing the mental war in our heads is because, one, We don't have the proper inputs, right? The reinforcements ain't coming, right? The wrong side is winning. Well, Linnell, you don't understand. I'm so exhausted at the end of the day. All I can do is sit down and watch TV, if that's what you believe. If that's what you say, because then that's all you can do, right? But when you have mental acuity, you begin to gain a sharpness that allows you to concentrate and create what you intend to create no matter what. Last night I was looking at what I'm going to be covering with the Slayer Goals members today, right? It was about 9 o'clock. And I was able to do that with a sharpness and a keenness, even though it started my day like 14, 15 hours ago. Been moving for 15 hours, but what practice has allowed me to do is actually corner out fatigue, mental acuity, right? Nope, no time for tiredness, and be able to focus on what it is that needs to be handled. And here's the beauty of that. Because I can focus, it didn't take long. Done, right? Comes with practice, mental acuity, mental sharpness. How sharp is your mind? But if you rely on others for your thinking, and here's what it looks like. Someone could ask you, what do you want to eat today? Right? Now, you made a commitment for your health, and instead of saying, this is a good opportunity for me to pick, so I'm not in a war with mental inputs when I walk in the wrong restaurant, right? You go, I don't know, what do you want? What do you want? And we don't even realize that many times we do that because we simply don't want to think about it. And we don't want to think about it because we lack the mental sharpness to actually go in and answer the question. A simple question, go in, answer the question. This mental acuity provides leverage for the battlefield of the mind. Now, last week I talked a little bit about this. We talked about the weapons. You want to understand all the weapons. If you were in a war, you want to understand the weapons. We talked about that. The part that I don't believe we got to is who you're going to battle with. Because if you were in a literal war, if we were in a literal war right here on these grounds and you had to do battle and you were put in a platoon of 5, you're one of 5, I would imagine you want to know who the other 4 are. And here's the thing for me. If I can't choose the 4, then you better be sure that once I know who the 4 are, I'm going to be all like, hey, how you think about things? What's going on? You know we got this, right? You know how to use that weapon? Good. What are you good at? Where can we deploy you? Like, I need to know everything about what you can and can't do. The pros and cons of you being a part of my team. Because we're about to hit the battlefield. Who's a part of your team? Who has access to your mind? Anyone you call friend, anyone you spend a significant amount of time with, anybody you spend a significant amount of time talking to has access to the most powerful weapon that you hold, your mind. Your mind. And so are these the same people you will go into battle with? Are these the same type? Because if not, I think one of the most difficult challenges that you may have is shifting who you spend your time with and who you're around. But again, how important is your vision? When I think about my friendships over the years, most of the people that I call friend in my 20s, they're not around. And it hurt. It hurt. I didn't necessarily make the choice alone. I say, hey, look, man, if we're going to be friends, this is how I'm moving. This is how I'm moving. You know, and if you don't respect that, then I'm not going to be able to rock with you the same way. And then when they didn't respect it, it didn't feel good. There was a connection there. Realizing that I was going to have to move forward alone based on the vision that I have for my life. The things I allow to enter my mind through what I see, hear, read, watch, feel, taste, smell, and every other imaginable input eventually serve as a weapon that will either help or hurt me. I supply the weapons based on what I consume and who I surround myself with. So the extent to which you are winning and losing the war on the battlefield of your mind has everything to do with the choices that you make. So how is mindset created? How is mindset created? We identify, throw the framework back up. We identify, number one, your mental inputs. Number two, your mental acuity, the sharpness of your mind. And then number three, how you do mental war. And how you do mental war has everything to do with the leverage you have of your mental sharpness, right? I'm sharp, so I see, I can't give that thought anymore. Let me stop that, right? My mental acuity and how I do war has everything to do with the weapons I'm provided, which come from my inputs. I got a question, how do I shift my thinking, Linnell? It's like your mental inputs. Many of us are losing the war in our mind because I want you to think about this. We are actually the spy behind enemy lines. Like you are your own spy behind enemy lines because you say, I want to do X, but then you listen to or watch Y. And then you go, why am I having such a hard time? Why am I losing this war? It's because you are literally providing weapons to the enemy. Imagine fighting an enemy that you are also providing weapons to. It makes no sense, but that's how many of us, in terms of mindset and vision, that's how many of us are treating ourselves. How serious are you about where you intend to go? Okay. Let me share another story about mindset. So, this is like, 2014, almost 10 years ago. 2013, 2014, I'm a new coach. And I'm traveling to Indonesia on a diving trip. For those of you who don't know, I do a lot of scuba diving. Well, not a lot anymore now that I got children. I do some scuba diving now. Back then I did a lot of scuba diving. And so in order for me to get to Indonesia, I have to fly through Hong Kong. And I decide I'm going to spend a few days in Hong Kong. And I also decide that I want to shift my game. And so I want to begin attracting the type of client that I intend to have, the vision I have for my business. And in order for me to attract this client, that means I have to start doing the things that these clients do. These clients fly business class, they stay in the top hotels, and they have car service. And at the time, this is a stretch for me financially. I want to be clear about that, right? It was a stretch for me financially at the time. So I remember looking at that business class ticket like, the things I could do with that money, right? And I decided, like, you know what, man? I need this input. like the mental input of sitting in business. I need this input. I need this input. Again, remember, inputs provide the weapons. I need this input. And so I flew business class, and then when I got to Hong Kong, I even had a black car waiting for me. And I stayed in the #1 hotel in Hong Kong. And again, remember, like I counted the cost. I didn't do this irresponsibly, but I didn't have money like that back then. All right. So stay in the #1 hotel. I walk into this hotel, check in, and I've already extended myself. When I say my budget was bursting at the seams, like I had already extended myself for this particular trip. And on day 2, I left my phone in the cab. And no Uber back then. So it's not like I could text the driver and say, yo, no. I left my phone in the cab. So now I don't have a phone. And at this point, I haven't had any conversations with anyone at this hotel. Like I was sitting in the bar purposely to, attract different people, or start a conversation with someone because, Hong Kong is an international center. And part of the reason I was doing the vision was to align with a business leader, an international business leader. I want an international business for my coaching business. At the time, I had no international business. And that was part of the vision. So I'm sitting in this Hong Kong hotel lobby at the bar. Nothing's happening. And then I lose my phone. And I remember I walked into the hotel and like I was in a place I had to make a decision. Like, man, am I going to let this ruin the trip? Or am I, what am I going to do about this? I got back to the hotel and I was like, I went to the lobby, asked the concierge, where's the Apple store? They told me where the Apple store was. They made a phone call for me, set up an appointment. And so I decided to sit at the bar of the hotel while I was waiting on this appointment. And I was going back and forth in my mind, like, maybe this is happening for a reason. Maybe it's not. Maybe this is happening for a reason. Maybe it's not. Like, that mental battle. Like, because I'm like, man, I can't believe this happened. I mean, I'm about to drop another stack on the phone. And I already spent so much money. And nothing is happening. And then I decided everything happens for a reason. This is what I mean by mindset. Maybe I am where I'm supposed to be. And if I didn't lose that phone, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. And I took a deep breath. I closed my eyes. I said, okay. Not less than 2 minutes later, a gentleman walks up to me. He goes, hey, what do you do? I've been watching you. And so we get into this conversation, let him know I'm an executive coach, this is what I do, et cetera, et cetera. And one thing leads to another, and he lets me know he'd like to have a conversation about the work that I do. Long story short, this man, he's Swiss, and he owns a Swiss company that performs basically heating and cooling operations for like most of the corporations in Switzerland, right? Like his company provides air conditioned services for the big the high rises in Switzerland. And he's like, we're growing, we're scaling, I could use a coach. And so we end up having a conversation, and he's on the verge of hiring me. And that's when it hits me. I was where I was supposed to be. Even though something, quote unquote, bad happened to me. I lost the phone so that I could actually fulfill on the vision. And I'm sharing the story with you all because many times the opportunities of our lives are actually guiding us towards where we want to be. I wouldn't have been in that lobby if I hadn't lost the phone. I want you all to really hear this, because often things happen to us that we perceive as negative when really we asked for it. The whole purpose of me going to Hong Kong was to land a big international client. And in order for me to land the big international client, I was required to lose my phone. Like, I hope you're grasping this, because what if I allowed the phone to dictate my attitude to the point where what he saw was nothing but negativity? Because remember, he walked up and said, I've been watching you. What do you do? I like the way you handle yourself. This is the power of mindset, and this is why mindset is so importantly linked to vision. Because that was the first. He ended up introducing me to an Australian woman who ran a change management company. She became the second international client. And then it went on and on from there. And to this day, I'm doing work all over the globe because of that moment and that particular declaration and vision. Last week I shared, the story of me being in that car accident and how I was strapped into the ambulance looking out the roof. And I had to come to the conclusion that if I'm operating with purpose, I'm operating with vision, that the accident was supposed to happen to me. I don't know why. The phone was supposed to get lost. Let me ask you all this. On the other side of a contract with that man's company, and the fact that he provided a referral to another potential client, the person who became a client, do you think that I regret losing that phone? Now, mind you, when I lost the phone, I regret I'm in a whole other country with no phone. I regretted losing the phone in that moment, but often the curveballs that life throw us are in alignment with what it is that we said we expect. Man, give me some hearts on Facebook if you all are getting this, so I know that this is landing. I know that this is landing for you. Like, many times, what we perceive as problems and opportunity are the sources of the expectation of the vision that we have for ourselves. Like, give me some hearts on Facebook if you know this to be true. And this is why mindset is so important. People say, Linnell, how can you be optimistic with so many things going on? I'm optimistic because I believe that if I'm clear on my vision and I have personal integrity in the pursuit of that vision, that whatever happens is meant for the attainment of that vision. And that requires a solidness of mind. The ability to breathe in something that you perceive as negative and blow out positivity. That requires a different level of mindset. All of that comes down to, however, if we were to dissect that situation, what were my mental inputs throughout the trip? What were the things that I was thinking about, reading about throughout the trip? How was I discerning what was happening around me in terms of my mental acuity? And so then when I was faced with the battle of the mind, when I was faced with the battle of what I was going to choose in what seemingly was a helpless situation, right? Not helpless, but you get my point, like foreign country, lost a phone. I remember when I walked up to the concierge, I said, sir, is it possible someone can call this taxi company because, I lost my phone? And he looked at me, he said, what kind of phone did you have, sir? I said it was gold. It was like that 2014, like it was the new gold. I think they had just came out with the gold iPhone. It was a gold iPhone. It had the gold. And I was like, it was an iPhone. What color was it? I said, it's gold. He said, sir, your phone is gone. He said, you're not getting that phone back. Not here in Hong Kong. Like that phone, you need to get to the Apple store so you can erase the content and get a new phone. You're not getting that phone back. And in that moment, I'm faced with the decision. Am I going to allow it to create despair? I did all of this and look what happened. Or am I going to be, that's right, Jerry, it was rose gold. Or am I going to continue to align with who it is I intend to be and expect the vision to come to fruition? There are 5 reasons, going back to that, 5 hindrances to our mindset. Number 1, I'm going to end the show with this. I really want to dive into these. Number 1, sensual. Whatever it is that we feel. Let me say this. If you have not gained control of your emotional volatility, it will be very difficult to create an unmovable mindset. Like a mindset where no matter what happens, your mind is trained on where it is you intend to go. Part of this requires emotional intelligence, the ability to overcome whatever sensual, I'm really trying to make this clear, but whatever sensual notifier comes up. Like, nope, that doesn't align. Nope, it doesn't align. Again, meaning sensual is anything with the senses, what you see, what you hear, what you smell, like anything with the senses. It's the number one hindrance to maintaining a mindset. This is why mental input is right there. Because I have to be feeding myself. I have to have a stock load. All of us have seen John Wick at some point, right? Like, you've seen John Wick. And it always happens where John Wick is just trying to do John Wick, right? He ain't messing with nobody. I mean, the very first one came with him at home with his dog, right? He was just chilling, you know. But then they mess with John. They go mess with John. And there's always a scene where John goes to the weapons cabinet. Right now, as cold as John, I really want you all to get this. As cold as John Wick is, if he didn't have a weapons closet, the movie would be over. The movie would be over. And what I'm afraid of is that because many of us aren't intentional with our inputs, when we experience some level of conflict, we don't have a weapons closet to go to. We don't have a weapons closet because you haven't been stacking the weapons of optimism. You haven't been stacking the weapons of faith and belief. You haven't been stacking the weapons of simply understanding and knowing how to transfer your emotional state. And we always I don't know about you guys, when I watch the movie and he goes to the weapons closet, you kind of sit back in your seat, you go, ooh, here we go. Goes to the weapon closet, got all the different weapons, the magazines, and he begins to load that suit up that has, I don't know how many pockets, because he's constantly reloading, right? The man has to be at least an additional 50 pounds when he walks out, but it's the movies, right? But think about it. What if you could just hold 50 pounds of mental weaponry that pushes you where you intend to go every time you run into conflict? The second hindrance, ill will and negativity. Like, how do you think? When something happens, do you think the worst? Do you automatically believe that every time something happens, they're trying to take advantage of me? Is that your way of thinking? And how will you begin to renew your mind when it comes to negativity? There's research that says that negativity just doesn't serve you. And then when the psychologists point to optimism, they say the thing about optimism is that it can seem Pollyannish, but there's something about the optimistic mindset that actually pulls a person out and over the obstacles that they have. So while optimism isn't the sole reason people overcome things, it is a powerful force for overcoming. And what they point to, optimism is a way of thinking. In order for the person to overcome it, they have to take action. But optimism leads to a certain type of action. So are you just inherently negative? And then think about the impact that negativity is not only having on your mindset, but even your health. What about your energy? When it comes to mental workings require energy. And so there's not a lot of things I give my mental workings to. I mean, things that happen, I see headlines. Recently it was the whole Jada Will Smith thing, and now it's Jeezy and his ex and Tyrese and his ex and all these different things. But that requires my energy. So I'm not, even at the barbershop, they like, hear what happened? I'm like, nah, tell me, because I'm going to put my energy somewhere. So what exactly happened? My wife shared a little clip, and then they were talking about it through. I'm like, oh, okay, I see what happened. Jeezy, okay, all right. That's cool. But am I willing to give my energy to that? Like, no, I don't care that deeply. What are you caring deeply about? What are you giving your energy to? Because energy is finite. So you've given your energy to everything else, everyone else, but then you expect to have a little something left for yourself, for your vision, for what it is you intend to create. Then there's the unsettled mind. The beauty of vision is that it gives your mind something to rest on. Something to very clearly meditate on. The unsettled mind is everywhere. I'm at a point now where on social media, I don't open anything that has to do with the war. Why? Because it unsettles my mind. It's not in my area of control. There's nothing I can do to control that. And so why would I give my mind to it? I can pray for them. Right? They're in my prayers, but I'm not giving my mind to those images. The images of children and women suffering. Because for me, right away, I think about my children. So now I'm thinking about my children in a negative light. It's mentally unsettling. It will erode my focus. And so this is what I mean by mental acuity, right? Mental sharpness, the ability to know, like, that's not for me. I've seen enough. I know enough. I know what I need to know. I share my thoughts on it, and I'm praying for them. But why would I immerse myself? Unless it's my purpose in my work, why would I immerse myself in something that is mentally unsettling and toxic? And then wonder, well, where's my focus? Where's my focus? And all of this comes down to the framework. Throw the framework back up again. It all comes down to that framework of being incredibly diligent about my mental inputs. If I want to maintain my focus, then what is going into my mind aligns with what I intend to be focused on. And then how I'm working my mind. The activities I give my mind are to develop the mental acuity that I need that actually gives me leverage on the battlefield. The battlefield of my mind. Because we are in mental warfare. I started the show saying there has been no other era that has attacked the mind the way we are under attack. On the way here, my mind was under attack. You say, well, Linnell, what do you mean? The billboards that lined the expressway. The commercial that interrupted the inspirational video I was listening to on YouTube. Like, these are all attacks. I didn't ask for the commercial. My wife and I, actually, we just discussed. I'm like, babe, we got to get YouTube Premium. Like, I don't know why I haven't done it yet, you know. But it's because how can I limit the attacks? It's a mental battlefield. I'm in the middle of listening to Dr. Miles Monroe talk about vision, and then they want to sell me a shirt. These are the best shirts for men. Men say, I'm like, I don't care about, like, it's a mental attack. It's a mental attack. And we have to understand that we are in a war like none. Our ancestors didn't fight mental wars quite like this. And if you're going to win under this assault, then you are going to have to get incredibly intentional about what you allow your mental inputs to be. Period. But one of the big questions people will have is, well, how do I maintain my vision? And the last two shows, that's the answer. Gain control of your mental inputs. Take your mental inputs seriously. Your mental inputs should align with what it is that you intend to create. At the beginning of the show, I said, what is it that you want? Then I shifted it to, what is it that you yearn for? What is it that you yearn for? Let's go back to the example of the car. If you're yearning for a luxury vehicle right now, what are your mental inputs? You're online, you're looking up Cadillac. You're likely building your Cadillac, right? Those are your mental inputs. What kind of wheels? How much do these particular rims cost? Ooh, that color actually is an initial $1,500. Well, should we just get white and black instead? You know, like versus the gold. I wanted the gold Cadillac, but maybe I just spend the $1,500, right? But that's your mental inputs align with what it is that you yearn. What type of life do you yearn? And do your inputs match? It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to think about it. When somebody say to give yourself to it mentally. Like, this is what I will create. This is where I'm going. And not only is my mind locked in, but even everything that I listen to, everything that I watch, everything that I hear, even what I eat aligns with what it is I intend to create. Everything. Full alignment. Because when you're operating that way, you can't help but expect it. Oh, it's coming. It's coming. And when you're operating that way and the world gets chaotic and volatile, nothing changes. Oh, it's coming. And this is why leaders who have a clear vision can lead through uncertainty. Because the message doesn't shift. What type of mindset will you take into 2024? If the body follows the head, then what investment will you make in your head? What intentionality will you create for your mind? How will you ensure that everything that you take in mentally aligns with where it is you intend to go? Hey, my inspired peoples, Linnell Harris here, certified ontological coach and trainer. I'm so excited that you're watching the channel. By the way, did you know you can catch the show live at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. every Sunday morning? You can. All you have to do is go to my Facebook stream, Coach Linnell Harris, catch the stream live, or you can listen to the radio show via iHeart at WVON 1690 AM. But since you're here, if you love the content, I ask that you share it, like this particular video, and subscribe to the channel. I hope you're having a great day.